Oh, this one warrants some sirens. Here we are, No Dunks, back with you again, but this one's an even bigger emergency. I'm Tess Mills. With me here in the emergency room, it's Trey Kirby.
Ow!
Hey, yo! And making the magic happen here, it's Ash with Kid. What's up, Ash?
How y'all doing?
We're doing good. Ash got to be a part of this one. That's how big this one is. Yes.
Let's three-team trade, three-man podcast. We got to.
Got to.
3 teams. Very, very interesting. Can't wait to get everybody's take on all 3 of these teams. The Hawks, let's start with them because it seems like they're getting the biggest name here. Kristaps Porziņģis is dealt to the Atlanta Hawks along with the second-round pick. The Nets receive Terence Mann from the Atlanta Hawks, plus the number 22 pick in this year's draft via Atlanta. And the Boston Celtics, what do they get for Kristaps Porziņģis? Well, they get Georges Niang from the Atlanta Hawks, plus a second-round pick. Trey, where are we starting? Where are we starting after this emergency that we pulled out today for this one, which is a bigger trade than Jordan Poole and CJ McCollum, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely a bigger trade than Jordan Poole, CJ McCollum. Look, there was a one-time champion in both of the trades, but Porzingis, as a one-time all-star, puts this trade over the top emergency-wise for me, and I think it's good to start with Atlanta. Not only are they first alphabetically, I just noticed that once that trade board went up, it was the 3 first alphabetical teams in the entire NBA. Whoa! You know, you've been monitoring things too much when you're noticing the alphabetical nature of things, but we got to start.
Why did we go Atlanta, Brooklyn, then Boston instead of Boston, then Brooklyn? Okay,
Start it over.
Restart. Go. Yeah. So why are we starting with Atlanta?
Well, they got the biggest name, certainly, in Kristaps Porziņģis, and I think the change for them makes them the most interesting team because we'll get to it, but, like, where are the Hawks going to rank in the Eastern Conference? But I think this is a really smart move for Atlanta, taking a flyer on Kristaps. He'll be 30 at the start of next season. He's on an expiring deal, so they can play out the season, see how things go, decide if they want to bring him back next year, or maybe they say, thanks for the memories, Kristaps. You know, this could go poorly for Atlanta, certainly, but I think it's a formidable front court they're going to be having. Jalen Johnson coming back from injury. Kristaps Porziņģis coming to Atlanta, coming back from illness, I suppose you would say. Ricochet in year 3. Then you've got the backcourt, Trae Young, Dyson Daniels. That looks like a nice starting 5 in an Eastern Conference that is a little bit topsy-turvy right now. We don't know what's going to be happening with the Bucks. We don't know who's going to be coaching the Knicks. The 76ers are drafting 3rd after a disaster season. Things are changing right now, and it seems like Atlanta decides we're tired of being in the play-in tournament every single year. We're tired of winning 40 games every single year, so maybe taking a chance on Kristaps, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. If things break right, I think they could make a conference finals team, but basically they got off the Terence Mann deal, which ran through 2028. I think that's an underrated benefit to Atlanta here. They didn't really give up any core players. Georges Niang, sad we never saw him on the belt line. At least I didn't, but he wasn't a long-term. They got the deal done at the trade deadline. He had some moments in Atlanta, but basically his biggest benefit is bringing Kristaps Porziņģis here. They did trade a first-round draft pick, but guess what? They kept the better one, number 13, which they're getting from Sacramento this season. So I think the way the Hawks played this is pretty smooth.
Ash, I saw you smile early on there when Kristaps Porziņģis was mentioned. Why was that smile? What do you you're glee? You're just full of glee over there.
Honestly, I was giggling because he said he's about to be 30. Blew my mind. That blew my mind. I thought you were about to say maybe 40, right? Like, just the way that he's never on the court. But I mean, you know, as a guy who's a fan of both of these teams, yes, the Hawks. This is a great move for them. I'm excited about it. They basically got off of 2 people who weren't really a part of rotation. I mean, kind of last year, yeah, but not a big part of their future, not a big part of their plans. I don't feel like so. Trey just went through it all. Having Porzingis though, as the man in the middle, that must mean that Clint Capella is going to be going somewhere soon, which is another good thing because what can you get for him to bring in and add to this team? They obviously need a lot of things. Everybody's always asking, what should we do with Trae Young? But like Trey just said, the East is wide open. The representative for the conference, their star player just got injured. He's going to miss all next season. The Celtics, who we're also talking about right now, Jason Tatum's out for all the next season. So what's going to happen with the East? It is wide open. I think the Hawks can break something. We've seen it happen before in 2021. So who's to say like this season isn't the season for them to make something happen? I'm optimistic.
Yeah, you got to be pumped for the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, we've seen 2 trades in the last 24 hours where the Boston Celtics did this sort of stair-step down method where they traded Jrue Holiday and they traded Kristaps Porziņģis. But in this case, they didn't get a great player like Anthony Simons back. And so in this one, how can you say to the Atlanta Hawks, messed up here? In theory, Kristaps Porziņģis in the middle of that starting lineup that Trey went through with Trae Young and Dyson Daniels as your backcourt, a young Zachary Richard at the 3 with Jalen Johnson at the 4, and then a very much needed center who's tall. They needed some height. And Onyeka Okongwu,
they needed a tall guy.
They did. It's risky because, listen, Kristaps Porziņģis, we don't know what he's going through medically and physically. He couldn't be himself at all in the postseason. He could barely play. He barely could be on the floor. He had to be off. He literally wasn't feeling right physically, whether it was that same bronchitis or whatever it was that happened during the season. I mean, he's really unsure. It's not like I'm unsure. He was really unsure as to what he had that took him out for weeks. He comes back and he just hasn't been himself. And he's literally said that. So is this a little risky? Yeah, it is, because he's also playing beside Jalen Johnson, who the guy is fantastic. That 5-year deal that he signed seemed so great before this year, but he's also been struggling to stay on the court. So you got a front court there that's good in theory. I mean, Jalen Johnson literally could have been an all-star, but are they going to be good? Well, a number 22 pick and Terence Mann and Georges Niang, probably worth it. Probably worth the risk, as Trey said. You know, it's a flyer, but it's a flyer on Kristaps Porziņģis, who, now that we've said he's 30 a couple times, he's starting to feel older and older, right? Because it is Kristaps and he hasn't been on the floor a lot, so it's a little worrisome. But I guess all in all, a number 22 pick when you have a lot of picks, Georges Niang, who got dealt already twice this season, and Terence Mann, who, Trey, I know you weren't a big Terence Mann fan, and he really wasn't thriving here in Atlanta. He just wasn't the best version of himself, and I don't know if he'll ever be that as a role player off the bench, really.
Yeah, there wasn't necessarily a spot for Terence Mann here in Atlanta, right? You've got guards in Daniels, and I guess, Richard is more of a wing, but guys who are ahead of Terence Mann in the development order for the Hawks. He didn't seem super happy to me to be here in Atlanta from the games I was at, but, that's just playing body language, doctor. I don't know what's going on with him. He's got a chance to stick around in Brooklyn. They've got basically nobody on their team right now outside of Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson for now. So he could stay, he could get traded. I don't know, but the Hawks packaging guys that they got from the Bogdanovich trade, basically, along with a late pick when they keep their earlier pick, I think this is a good roll of the dice for a team that has been stuck in the bottom of the middle in the Eastern Conference for a little bit here. They're a much more balanced team. Like, Porzingis does bring defense when he's on the court, shot blocking as well. Jalen Johnson can play defense. Richard is solid, and Dyson Daniels is obviously a really good defensive player. You've got Trae Young as the engine, who's going to be setting Kristaps up with lobs, finding him for pick and pops. This is just a really good on-paper fit. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, Tass, the injuries are going to be a concern. It's like Kristaps played 56 games last year. That's not very good, but it's 20 games more than Jalen Johnson played. That guy is banged up quite a bit, but they do have Okongwu. I think he's maybe best suited as a backup big just because of the height, the rebounding. He's a good player, though, and if either of those guys miss time, Johnson or Porzingis, which is likely, Okongwu can step in for a couple of games here and there. So I think good stuff from the Hawks. Their new front office is deciding, hey, let's make something happen here. And it's going to be interesting to see how things play out because, they've been in the 7 through 10 range quite a bit. I think this should, in theory, elevate them to a top 6 seed. We'll see how it actually turns out.
All right, Ash, let's get your opinion of your other favorite team, the Boston Celtics, and what they did here, sending out Kristaps for Georges Niang, essentially, and a second-round pick.
I guess the question is, what exactly is the plan right now for the Celtics? Coming in to free agency or coming into the summer, everybody's like, okay, maybe something has to be done. There's a lot of money on the books right now. But like I said earlier, Jason Tatum going down with injury is going to miss the season. Everybody's like, okay, well, maybe we stay still, maybe. But no, they ship out Jrue Holiday yesterday for Anthony Simons. Then today they decide, yeah, let's get rid of our starting center. They just won a championship last year. And they're already like, we have to find a new iteration on this team. I don't know if that's the right move. Maybe it is. Maybe you tinker just around the edges and you see what happens. Or what I thought was going to happen, maybe they stand pat and see what they have with the team without their star player and see what Jaylen Brown can do as kind of their star player this season. But I guess it's still the plan. But to make your team, in my opinion, worse, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say Kristaps Porziņģis, yes, part of a championship team, played on it, but his role wasn't as and then
he probably could have won it without him last year.
Right.
100%.
Yeah, and they've re-signed guys like Jrue Holiday for monster contracts. They've re-signed their stars for monster contracts. Kristaps Porziņģis at the end of his contract this coming season, he's got one more year on that deal, was not going to be signed like those other guys were. Just because of the way that the CBA works, it would have been probably too expensive. I mean, you see all these championship teams, and they just generally keep all the guys on it. But if a guy's not playing, it would have been hard to sign him. And I hate to go back to injuries, but you got to be realistic with him. And they also could be seeing that he ain't playing that much. Simple as that, right?
I think in a nutshell, like this deal alone probably isn't too bad. So maybe I'm being too harsh with this one because as with the Celtics, yeah, they should. Why not do that? He's not playing anyway, so you're not giving up anything, right? But packaged with Jrue Holiday maybe going out yesterday, in which a lot of people say, is Jrue Holiday washed? Is he good enough to help them be a championship contender at the age he is and the way that he's playing right now? But I think when you look at them together, like I said, they just won a championship last year, and you've lost your starting point guard and the starting center. Regardless if they're playing or not, it's like, okay, well, what are they doing to fill the holes of that position, right? And I know Anthony Simons comes in, but how much is he helping? Like, he's not going to bring the defense that Jrue Holiday had, for example. So I don't know. That's just, I guess, my opinion of it there.
That's all right. It's weird. The Celtics, these are honestly tanking moves, if we're being 100 with it. Sure. They traded 2 starters. They're going to look hilarious next year. They're going to be out 3 starters when you factor in Tatum's injury. And the guys that they brought in are Simons and Georges Niang. And all those guys want to do is chuck 3-pointers. They're not going to play defense. They're just going to run and chuck. Niang at least tries. He just doesn't have great quickness or athleticism, but he tries at least. So I think they're just going to be a run and gun team. But the plan for the Celtics, everybody knew, even before the Tatum injury, was to save some money here. Like Porzingis and Holiday could have been second apron casualties regardless of a Tatum injury. But once he went down, you can tell that their new ownership is taking this gap year pretty seriously. It's just going to be a down year for the Celtics. Maybe they can still be a playoff team led by Jaylen Brown and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons. Like, they still have talented pieces around. We'll see what they do with Al Horford and Luke Cornett. I think it maybe makes it more likely that they stick around now that they don't have a center with Porzingis being traded. But the plan for the Celtics is we're getting underneath the second apron, which this deal does. It gets them out of the repeater tax as well, which saves the new owners like $200 million basically in real money, not necessarily salary cap money, but how much they were going to have to pay for it. And when you're doing financial moves, unfortunately, the return is going to be a second-round pick and a Georges Niang, right? So it's going to be a down year for the Celtics compared to where they've been the past, 7 seasons? Ash is getting used to conference finals appearances, but it's not always gravy. You got to take a little bit of a step back, and they'll be gearing up for 2026 when Tatum returns at full strength. I think you could get upset, though, Ash, if Jaylen Brown ends up getting shipped out. That would be a major change up here, but these ones are a little bit more understandable and expected.
Right, yeah. Working around the Kristaps Porziņģis absence seems like it's doable for the Celtics because they just freaking won a ship with Kristaps not playing a ton, and so that seems fixable. Even the Jrue Holiday, I'm putting them sort of separately into this vacuum. I know Holiday helped. He was an incredible defender, and Anthony Simons obviously doesn't compare to that whatsoever. But there will be more responsibility on Derek White, which I think he's capable of. I think Peyton Pritchard has more to give as potentially even a starter on this team. I mean, he's just a good player. He's not an incredible defensive player, but he's a really solid player. So, yes, they're definitely weaker, but at the same time, it does allow them to fix up everything that they did when they signed everybody prior to the CBA going in, and then it being a reality that all of these extended contracts are going to hurt big time. So I think they have done pretty smart here. Let's go to Brooklyn, who basically took, as you mentioned, Trey, how long Terence Mann is signed for, 3 more years and a number 22 pick, basically to get that for nothing. They gave up nothing. They got Terence Mann and a number 22 pick. So I think what we're seeing here is that they're not going to be able to get all that much this offseason. They basically said, we'll be happy to take a number 22 pick if that means taking on Terence Mann, but they really aren't going to be able to grab too much more other than that. Or am I missing something? I mean, they still do have some salary cap room, but I think we're seeing what the Nets will be come this offseason.
Oh yeah, the Nets are in ultra tank mode right now. You know, their tanking this season didn't go as planned, which is why they had to trade Dennis Schroeder midway through the season. They won too many games early in the season, which put them behind the 8-ball odds-wise going in. So they do have their draft pick this coming draft tomorrow, and then they obviously, I mean, they've got 5 picks, 8, 19, 22, 26, 27. They have their 2026 pick as well. 2026 top of the draft is supposed to be very, very good. And like I said earlier, there's just not much in Brooklyn right now. They could still move Cam Johnson if they want to. Teams are probably at least calling about Nick Claxton, but other than that, it's like random dudes. Like we're talking the next after Claxton and Cam Johnson and Terence Mann making at least double-digit $1 million. Everybody else is in the single-digit $1 million, like $8 million for a Cam Thomas kind of contract. They don't have much there. Their plan is to be bad, and they're using their cap space here to facilitate a deal, which is something that smart teams do. When you've got the cap space, you're not necessarily going to get the players, but you can take on a Terence Mann contract and maybe ship him out a little bit later and get a second-round pick or 3 second-round picks. Who knows what somebody would pay for Terence Mann? He was a hot property once upon a time. So this is just smart from Brooklyn. I think they're still going to be really active, especially tomorrow, because 5 draft picks is kind of insane. Like you can't roster 5 rookies, but maybe somebody decides, hey, there's somebody I like that dropped to number 19. Can I hop up for that trade? Or could they package these and get into the top 5? I don't know. It seems like they're going to be still calling on draft day. So I think Brooklyn is doing the smart stuff here. They did a good job to get their picks back in the trade with Houston last year. Unfortunately, they won a little bit too much at the start of last season. I don't think that's going to be a problem going into 25-26.
Yeah, you're totally right about the few contracts that they have on the books. So they still do have room to just inherit guys like a Terence Mann or other guys, because they're paying literally nobody. I didn't realize how low it was. I guess I was in 24-25 mode and still seeing Ben Simmons' monster number and Bojan Bogdanovic and D'Angelo Russell and the injured DeAnthony Melton. I mean, those 4 guys that I just mentioned were making, in between $12 and $39 million all off the books. So now, it's just Claxton, Cam Johnson, and now Terence Mann, who's making around $15 million for the next 3 seasons, 15 to 16. So they got lots of room. Whoever wants to deal, as long as they're not taking on Bradley Beal, then they're good.
The saddest news today, Tass. Saddest news today is the Bulls are a potential landing spot for Bradley Beal. Come on, bro. If they have a Giddey Beal backcourt, I don't know if I'll be able to continue podcasting.
70-win team right there.
70-loss team right there.
That kind of seems like an Arturas Karnisovas move. Like that would fit his definition of, we don't need a super duper star, but we need 9 really good players. And Squint and Bradley Beal is a good player, maybe.
Don't you
like
put that evil on me, Tass Mellis.
Yeah.
It ain't happening yet.
Point.
But I don't know what's going to end up happening. There are reports out of Boston today that the Celtics are still trying to move up into the lottery in tomorrow's draft. Apparently, they're fans of Yakachonis out of Illinois. I don't know if they're going to be able to have the assets to swing a deal like that, but the Celtics are going to be an interesting team next year. Jaylen Brown, assuming he's still around, will be the leader. Derek White, the number 2 option. And then after that, it just seems like straight up 3-point chucking, which can be fun to watch, but also not the team we've seen from the Celtics. They were a team that was great on offense, a top 5 defense. There's no way they're going to be as good defensively next year, but we'll see. Where do you think this leaves the Hawks in the East, though, Tass and Ash? Are they is this a playoff team, a top 6 team?
I mean, I can't even remember right now, but they were not too far outside of the playoff picture this season, right? And like we said, in the first half of the season with Jalen Johnson, the way that he was playing, the way that the Hawks looked with him on the floor, they were a much better team, right? So if we get
40 and 42, Ash, only 4 games back of the 6th place Pistons, it feels like they would be so much further back because of the Pistons and who they were. But you're right, Jalen Johnson was a huge factor for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, why couldn't they be top 6?
Yes, in theory, yes, for sure. And I hate saying in theory, but it really is Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson is their second best player. He has an incredible relationship with Trae Young. They have such good chemistry. There was a point where Trae Young and Jalen Johnson were number 4 and number 5 in passes per game in the NBA, or maybe it was number 3, number 4. Like everything ran through them. And so when he went out, it was the end of the season, really, because Dyson Daniels and Zachary Richache weren't good enough to be around him. Now we see Kristaps Porziņģis come in. And I don't know what you guys think about Kristaps Porziņģis' ability to have a contract year. Is that possible? Can Kristaps Porziņģis be like, well, it's my year, man. It's the last time I'm going to get paid, essentially. I'm 30. I got to play.
Hopefully. I think that's the hope in Atlanta. To me, it never comes down to talent with Porzingis. It's availability is the main question. He's an all-star caliber player when he's on the court. It's just a question mark if he's going to be on the court. So I think the Eastern Conference this year, I might start calling it the spare tire because it's a little fat in the middle. Up top, the Cavs. The Cavs, things are working awesome for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They flamed out in the second round of the playoffs, but everybody got hurt, and all of their guys are going to be coming back. Darius Garland is having surgery, but hopefully he'll be ready at the start of the season. They made their move during the trade deadline with the trade with Atlanta getting DeAndre Hunter. They're looking good. The Knicks do have to hire a coach. They're going to want some additional depth, but assuming they bring back Brunson, of course, assuming they bring back Towns, doesn't seem like there's really a trade out there for him, but it seems like everybody can be traded at this point. I still think the Knicks are probably near the top of the Eastern Conference, but then you get into all these other teams. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Orlando is going to be better, assuming they can stay healthy. Detroit should be better. Milwaukee still has Giannis. The Pacers still have Siakam. The Celtics still have Jaylen Brown. There's still an all-star on all these teams, but it's just one all-star rather than a couple of them. So, 3 through 8 is probably going to be pretty tight in the Eastern Conference.
Do the Magic join the top of that fat team, or the fat teams, I should say?
The above the waistline part of it? Yeah, I think they want to. Yeah, I think they on paper probably, yeah. So
you're it goes Cleveland. The New York Knicks would have to be that second seed, and then
I think so.
Unfortunately, because of Tatum's injury and Halliburton's injury, I guess they get lumped in with the Pistons and the Magic. I mean, the Bucks are there, and the Hawks are there. Yeah, you said them all. I guess that's.
I think if the Pistons take their next step, then they're up in that top 4-ish range for sure.
Yep.
And then, like you said, the Magic, I feel like they're up there. But like you said, the Bucks still have Giannis, so he could do a lot of things in the regular season. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's honestly the case every year. It's going to come down to health. The Magic were a great team last year until Paolo Banchero missed a third of the season, and Franz Wagner missed a third of the season. The Pacers were 10-15 until Nembhard and Nesmith got healthy, and then they went on an absolute tear. It's going to be who can stay on the court and perform, because there's some playoff caliber teams, I think, from 3 to 8, and we'll see who's gets 70 games out of their second and third best players, because that'll determine the East. And then once we get to the playoffs, it's all matchups. But it's interesting. I think the Hawks are interesting here. I think the Celtics did what they wanted to do, saving some money, and the Nets are just being smart, being a bad team, but doing good business stuff. So I kind of think for a 3-team trade, win-win-win. Win-win-win-win.
Yeah, I can't. I went back to just check on the standings because as you were talking about the Hawks, Ash, I felt like this was such a good Hawks team for a while. The NBA Cup time. I mean, they felt like they were gathering a lot of steam. They peaked at 22-20, which it's like a 500 team, and then with Jalen Johnson out around that time, it was over. And it's pretty important, as you just said, Trey. It's about the guys who are playing, and I truly do wonder, unfortunately, if Jalen Johnson or Kristaps Porziņģis will play more games this year, because Jalen Johnson, as young as he is, he ain't anywhere close to 30. He does miss time. I mean, he only played 36 games last year, 56 games the year before that. He did have a good one in his second year, 70 games, but 22 in year one. And we all know about Kristaps Porziņģis, so it's really dependent on those guys. They have a lot of talent, though. Yep. I can't wait to see Kristaps in the middle. I mean, they needed a big guy, but they do have more depth. And I guess the Lakers we talked about Yves Missi being replaced with New Orleans. That could be a Clint Capella destination because he's leaving Atlanta now that Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu were there. It has to happen.
He's a free agent, I think, right? And he'll be one of the bigger backup centers you can get out there. So, Capella has had his moments. He's at the end of his career for sure. He's slowed down, but he can give some minutes. A team like the Lakers that needs a big guy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Skeet
right.
said to mention for sure Capella to the Lakers. You want everybody to know.
Oh, did he?
Yes, I saw that in our Slack earlier. But man, what a day. 3 podcasts. I saw the stream team earlier was saying our record was during the 2022 trade deadline. We did our normal show in the morning and then 3 emergency podcasts, setting the record at 4 in a day. And look, we could be back here in the emergency room a little bit later tonight, but I'm going to go play basketball. So if it happens in the next hour and a half, call me Magic Johnson because I ain't going to be there.
Respect. Gotta get your reps in. Gotta get healthy for the 25-26 season. We need you on the floor, man.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. All right. Great performances, everybody. Back to back Jacks.
Yep.
We will be back on Thursday, maybe before that.
Who gets traded in the next 12 hours? So we're doing a show at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We shall see.
But for now, Clipper Bros.
You heard it here first. Have a great time. Turn up. Love you guys. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, we've been monitoring the trades all day, and it paid off.
It sure did. Here I am. Oh, we're clean. No good trades. Don't got to do one right now.